Welcome back to the Honest Business Podcast. Today we are going to talk about learnings from February. I have 8 learnings from February. I'm actually recording this on the 21st of February, so who knows, there could be more, but 3 weeks in, this is what I've learned. I've got 8, and I don't normally share these, but these potentially could become a regular episode. If anyone enjoys them, do let me know. But I thought I would share them with you. The concept of this is that we hear all the time about learning, and that's key to business development, and people talk about, constantly be learning, etc., etc. What people don't talk about is the people that actually do that. And what does that look like, and what do people do? So for me, I learn all the time. We've got learnings all the time. I'm seeing things in the business all the time, so I'm experiencing things and experiencing life and thinking, right, okay, what does that mean for me? And one of the ways that I've been able to become so good at what I do, become so advanced, become such a pro at it at arguably such a young age, is because of this piece, is because of my learning ability is massively huge in terms of how I can process stuff and the speed in which I do so, and then actually being present in that and actually doing something with it. So it's very easy for people to sit and say like, oh, this happened and that happened and I do this and I do that. It's like, right, okay, well, what does that mean for you? What is the learning? And I try really hard to get clients in this pattern and this rhythm of understanding this too, because it really changes the game for people once they realize like, wow, I can do this. I can learn fast and actually take things from it. So we are going to go through one by one. Some are short, some are longer, and go through. I should mention actually, these are not really, when I say learnings, they're not really like mind-blowing things that we've never heard of before, or like things that I've never discovered. Most of the time, like 90% of the time, it is stuff that I know that I'm retold, that I'm kind of invigorated with and kind of asserted of like, yeah, may remember this, or this, or this builds on this concept, or this builds on this theory. And that is why I like doing this, right? Because I can start piecing things together and start building bigger pictures of things. And I think one of the things with me is people say, you have such thought out ideas in the sense of you have depth and you don't just say the same thing everyone talks about. Part of that reason is because I have such a volume of kind of like a breadth of understanding amongst a topic, and that comes from me, learning, failing, constantly tweaking things and things not going well. Like there's so much to be learned from that. So number one is people simply do not value my time or their time in the same way that I value my time. And they probably never will or won't ever, because, people don't. And it's hard, right? Because I get reminded of this a lot, but this month particularly I've had that where it causes frustration. It can cause frustration, it can cause annoyance, and I have to be reminded of it. And I am happily reminded of it because you know what? There's so much power that comes from that. And actually I was reminded of it, and then I've changed something and I put something in place and really helped me, because I was like, yes, I'm so pleased I've done that, because it's now February and by December that will really help. And it was really big for me that this month. So this month I really got reminded about this idea of, look, other people don't value time in the same way, and I cannot expect them to. It is not my job to show them why they should. It's not my job to be like, here's why you should, because they don't care, potentially, or they're not at that point in their journey. They're not emotionally intelligent enough to get to that point. And that is not me criticizing people. That is not about me slating people. It is about me, having a really open conversation and saying, look, everybody's on their own journey. People are at their own time scale, and that comes, you have to learn to just accept that. And that is something I learned in childhood. That was something that I learned when I was younger, and it has constantly come up for me. And when I started a business, obviously it completely exploded in a whole new way and really fascinated me. But right now, people, the way my time is, like, my time is so bloody precious, and I value it so dearly. Like, to me, my time means more than any money in the world will. And that's for various reasons, that I think I have a very different perspective of it compared to the majority of people. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that that is the case for me. And understanding that has just, that's so weird. As I said that, I've got goosebumps on my arms. That's so interesting. Literally, my whole body, I can just feel it. Goosebumps. And that tells you all you need to know, right? For me, time is absolutely bloody everything. And so it's the team member said to me, actually, they said people are fascinated, would be fascinated or are fascinated when they see your time and how you display it and use it and kind of plan it. She was like, you so meticulously plan everything because you have to, you don't really have a choice, you know, you're running two businesses, you've got a lot going on. And I say, yeah, and I feel like time is something that people just do not understand. And yeah, it was just an interesting learning. And it was a good one. I enjoyed learning again. It was an interesting one. Number 2 is that people say that they want something, but what they actually want is another thing. Now, I say this all the time in terms of selling, and you hear all the time, sell people what they want, and then give them what they need, that kind of thing. But this goes deeper than that. That's not what I'm kind of meaning here. What I mean is, people will wholeheartedly believe in something, and they say they want something, but I know what they actually want is a different thing, but you can't tell them that. Or you can try to, but it doesn't normally, in my experience, work very well. And that is something that's so interesting about human beings. And this is very much an analysis on human behavior. Like, people say they want something in their life, they want to attract something, they want to manifest something, they want to create something, they want to build something. But then when I look further into it and I'm like, well, why or what is that going to give you? What is the thing you're seeking? What are you chasing? I'm like, okay, you don't need to do that. You need to do X, Y, and Z thing. And that is so interesting because some people are really open to that. Some people even hire me for that. I don't talk about this enough, not enough, a lot, because I think it sounds quite kind of self-indulgent. But sometimes business owners will get to a point where they just want an opinion, and they find someone that really has an interest in opinion and has, a set of thoughts and opinions that is really valuable, i.e. me. And that's what they hire me for, which I think is really cool. And I love that. Yeah. So we can have these kind of really in-depth conversations that for some people would be like, why is this what you're spending your time on? But yeah, that was a good learn for me to remind me of like, look, it's okay for me to see what someone wants to do and be like, okay, what they actually need is X. And, I will tell them, but I'm not going to come and kind of, you can only tell people to a certain degree of what they need. A lot of the time, what this looks like and how it manifests in real life is that someone will go down a path for a couple of years and then finally get to the solution. And I don't want to say solution as if they weren't at a great point anyway, but I just mean we'll find what I had in my head in the first instance, but it takes them time. It takes everybody time to get places, yeah? So it's not a bad thing. It's just interesting to be reminded of it. Number 3 is, this was so cool, right? And this is really interesting. This was a reminder that you can work with clients for years and years, and they can be completely different to what you ever thought. And this is really interesting, yeah? So again, this is not a bad thing, this is a good thing, but it's really interesting of, you can think you know someone and you can predict what that's going to look like. And we have to in our role, yeah? Like in my role, I have to predict to some degree how people are feeling or how people are going to react, because that's what I'm there for. I'm there as a kind of crash barrier a lot of the time to support people and to kind of raise them up. But protecting them is somewhat of what I do. And so there's inevitability if I always have to kind of think about that. However, this reminded me that to always just push forward with what I think and tell them straight what I would say as if they were a stranger to me. Again, this conversation might seem a bit strange, but you're really getting the in-depth work in this today, and I think this is what I want to listen to on a podcast. So whether or not this is interesting to you, I don't know, but if you enjoyed this episode today, let me know, because I think this stuff is much more interesting than hearing like 5 tips for this thing. This is the stuff that people don't talk about and is really interesting. So one of the things that happens when you work with people a lot is that so many, amazing connections are made and so many layers. And how I describe it is, I'm using my hands a lot if you're listening to this. We create layers when we work with people, whether that's people are renewing contracts for the 4th time, 5th time, or 2nd time, or, the first time you work with someone, you're creating spider web of different connection points. But as the layers go on and on, the relationship adds and deepens. It's the same as a romantic relationship, the same as any kind of relationships in your life, yeah? Things layer up. Now, one of the reasons that I think I'm very good at my job, and one of the things that I have to actively do, and it's something that I regularly kind of judge myself against, is making sure that even though that relationship is growing and it's expanding and it's getting things added onto it and it's becoming really complex and it's becoming layered and it's becoming beautiful, right? I have beautiful relationships with clients. I have really gorgeous relationships that I really value in my life. However, I have to make sure that I always come at something as if all of that doesn't exist to some degree. Yes, we use it to help us because that will help me get to being able to provide them a solution faster. But on the other side of it is terms of being objective and really understanding what they need and what they need to be told. I have to objectively pull myself out of a situation and give them the same thing I would tell them if I didn't know them, if I didn't know the whole backstory, if I didn't know the ins and outs of X, Y, and Z thing. This is a real tweak and something that is a real level above what most people will get, and this has taken me time to really nail. So, I'm not saying that like I'm some kind of pro at it, but I kind of am, I suppose. That was funny, but I really take time to develop this, of not letting people be comfortable, continuously offering them new opportunities, new avenues. Now, when I say new, it might be the same opportunity, the same avenue that I've said for years and years, but we're trying a different way of saying it, or people are in a position to hear it. That is the difference for me. That is the thing that is really going to help people know that that it's the right thing for them. And I think this is really, I know that this might come across as a bit abstract and a bit difficult, but what I'm trying to say is, your clients to a certain degree, but there is also layers that you have no clue of and you're never going to. But what will happen is, as time goes on, different layers come out to play, different things come into fruition, they will share different things with you. What is really easy for you to do is to just attach onto that, and you become very connected to them in a way that doesn't really help them. And so what I was reminded of this month, and what I continue to do, is that actually the standard I uphold of making sure I tell people straight what it is I think and what I think they need to hear, that is really beneficial for clients. That really helps them. And, for me, I had to learn a long time ago that just because I said something once means nothing. Like, they need to be told it sometimes, time and time and time again. And I have to be okay with the fact that I'm going to say things again and again, and they're not going to hear it, or they're going to hear it in a different way. I had to get really comfortable early on that I will share an idea and share an opportunity or a strategy or a process for them to adopt, and they won't adopt it. And then they will find it in 6 months' time from a different podcast or a different avenue or a different kind of person saying it. And they've said it in a way that connects to them. And they will come to a call and be like, oh, I've got this amazing epiphany. I've had this breakthrough. Like, this is what I want to do. And I come at it from a like, yeah, let's do it. And I don't make them connect the dots up, because they don't need to. Yeah, we're not here for like me to have my ego massage. So it doesn't matter. Some clients will make the connection, and often it won't come until months like later, or even years later sometimes, where they'll be like, I know you've been saying this for months, or actually 6 months ago you said this to me and I discounted it, or we go through this whole process and in the end they have this realization one day and they're like, oh my goodness, I remember when you said this, but I just never connected together. All of that's relevant, right? It's all valid, it's fine. What you have to understand as a facilitator, as a leader, that is what you're holding space for. But I know that can be quite hard at the beginning, and it takes time for you to fully bed into that and fully understand that. And I know when I speak to other people who do similar things to me, or facilitate a relationship of a client relationship, of that, people get very frustrated by that. And that's where your leadership and your emotional intelligence needs to come in. And that is a journey. I'm not saying it happens straight away, but people can come to me and be really annoyed. They're like, well, I said this to a client and then they didn't want to do it and now they're doing it. And people get very riled up, and that's because they're too connected to the person. Whereas for me, I'm saying that the learning this month was about actually, for the way I do that and the way I continue to push it and make things a bit more difficult for me but better for the client is the right thing. I got a lot of evidence this month where I was like, yeah, that is the right thing that I'm doing here. That is beneficial to them and it's not about me. So that was really interesting. Honestly, this podcast, you get so many nuggets, so many nuggets that will help you in so many areas of your life, of your business, of your professional development. I love this podcast. I really think that it is immensely useful. I know it's my podcast, so you'll probably be like, well, you would say that, but I'm highly critical of myself, so if I think it's good, I feel like, you know, it must be good. Anyway, you can be the judge of that. So, number 4, moving on. The next learning was that people want structure, they want focus, and they want to be guided. And that fluidity is great, but it isn't where people thrive. And this is controversial, I suppose. But, and what I mean by that is, people want to feel like they have all the freedom in the world. But then when they have that, it's very terrifying for most people. And so actually, people do want structure. They do want focus. They do want to be guided. And that is a really interesting kind of balance to weigh up for you, to be like, oh, okay, yeah, how do we balance that? Now, one of the ways I believe we balance that is through having really strong people in your life, i.e. me, in terms of your support system, as an advisor, consultant, business coach, whatever you want to call me, in there to help people create structure. Because it's 2 different energies, yeah? But a lot of people use me for really deep work in the sense of having a structure, having a plan, understanding. They want to be guided and be told, right, next step, let's go this. Next thing, why don't you try this? It's not me necessarily telling them what to do, although some of that of my work is that. It's more so about them feeling secure and held. And this idea of feeling held is really important, yeah? Feeling seen is important, but feeling held and feeling safe in that environment is really key. And that's really what I provide people with. And I know that the power of that is huge. But I was reminded again that, yes, fluidity is great, but it's not where people thrive most of the time. There might be the odd person, but for a lot of people, they struggle with just a free-for-all of like, oh, let's see what happens. A good example of this isn't the example that came up this month, but an example for you to maybe think about that might display this well, is sometimes people will hit the goal that we've been working towards together. So they like be going towards goal, they've hit it. There's then the massive like goal achievement slump, which we've talked about in an episode before. It's one of the first episodes, I think, about what happens, the dark side of hitting your goals or something like that, where, you know, there's this element of like, you've hit your goal, great, what's next? And people feel quite lost. Then the next part of that is human behavior will tell us that people will then come to me and go like, right, actually, I don't want to do any goals at the minute. I'm just going to chill out. I'm going to vibe. I'm going to like have a nice time, etc. Now I'm like, okay, fine. If that's what you want to do. Great. But I do also tell them, okay, well, why don't we look at doing a duo, and kind of molding things together, which is often the best option for people. However, it's obviously up to them what they want to do. People will then be like, no, I want to be really fluid. I want to just see where things take me. I want to be creative. I want to do whatever. Inevitably, I'd say 90% of the time, there is this crash that comes from that. There is this kind of like lull. There is this crisis that some people end up in. There's this emotional turmoil that people can end up in. They feel lost. They feel confused. It spreads beyond the business. It spreads into life. Things can happen. They start self-sabotaging. And there's this whole thing that happens. And I argue that comes from this issue with the fluidity of people like just let go of all kind of thing. They're like, whoa, great, this is great. And it is great for like a couple of days or a couple of weeks, depending on their kind of makeup as a human being. But then there's this kind of issue with fluidity isn't where people thrive, in my opinion. Now, where I'm also not saying that structure and focus and having everything around a goal is the ideal situation either. That's not. The ideal situation is having a mixture of the two, and you work out the percentage of the two based on the type of human being you are and the makeup of that person. But it is really interesting to see what that means and how that kind of affects people. And this month, I was kind of remembered and kind of refreshed from that, which was interesting. Number 5. Oh, this is a good one. Again, this is the one we all know, but let's just talk about it anyway. Number 5 is, drum roll, knowing when to leave is really powerful, and it's so bloody important. And what I mean by that is leaving a conversation, a relationship, a deal, a venture, a team, whatever. Like, knowing when to leave is key. You've got to know when to leave. You've got to know when to cut ties. It is so bloody powerful, and it is so important. So key. People don't do this. People will roll their eyes, listen to this, being like, of course we know that, May. Great. They don't do it, though. People don't leave. People stay where they are in conversations, in meetings, in long-term relationships, in all sorts of things, way longer than they should do. Some people years, some people decades, some people, hours more than they should be. Knowing when to leave, so key. So many relationships are broken upon the fact that people just outstay things. They don't, and I'm talking about business relationships, like they just don't know when the time is to leave. So don't fall for that. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Number 6. This is, it's not controversial. You can say it's my opinion. I believe it's fact, but whatever. We can go with it's my opinion if we need to. Number 6 is women are not equal. Women are not equal. Women need to speak up. And then the big kicker is that I believe that confidence is the biggest blocker from us having a world full with really articulate women. And that is difficult, yeah. It's a hard one to talk about because there's a lot of kind of issues that come up around that. But let's talk about it. Why not, right? Let's have a discussion. So, women are not equal. I think many of us will agree with that. But I just reminded multiple times this month and was really infuriated and found it really difficult from time to time. We are just not as equal. Full stop. Women needing to speak up, big issue. Big issue we have with this. More women need to share their opinion, their thoughts, their ideology. And the episode, from last week will have really gone into that in terms of I've done an episode for International Women's Day that was talking about being direct and about one thing you can do to really improve your leadership as an entrepreneur. If you have not listened to that episode, please go and listen to it. It is really important and is so connected to this and is really, key in terms of making progress from this, because there's no point in us just talking about how horrendous it is if we don't do something about it. But women need to speak up. The amount of great ideas I hear from women, the amount of innovative, useful, different stuff that's like way beyond what we're currently processing on is unbelievable. And yet people just don't talk about it. They don't hear it. They don't have a platform. They don't have a voice to. They don't feel confident. And the confidence piece is the bit that really I think is missing a lot of the time. And so one of the learnings I've really was solid in my belief in, because sometimes I've toyed with myself over this of like, is it or is it not? But I honestly do think this confidence piece is the biggest blocker in terms of internal factors that we can control. Obviously, there's external things that we can't control. We can contribute to and we can try and change, but that we can't always, fully change on our own. We need the support of others. The confidence thing from an internal perspective is huge, and the being direct thing links to the confidence. But this confidence ideology is around that really articulate women are powerful in society, and they're powerful in business, they're powerful for entrepreneurship, but that is only going to come from women being confident, because you've got to be confident enough to share, to speak up, to be, get something wrong, to fail. And so the confidence piece is where it really truly kind of sits and is really, I'd argue, is it a traffic light until we kind of move past that point, because that's holding so much conversation back. And so that was a learning where I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, this confidence thing, big issue, like big issue that needs to really be changed. Number 7 from learnings from February, which also was expressed in last week's episode, is say the thing that no one else is saying in a room, but everyone wants to ask, or other people want to ask. I had to do this month once or twice. Probably twice. There's one particular moment in my head that I'm thinking about. And I had to do it because no one else was going to talk about this thing. People were talking, but no one was going to talk about the actual thing that, we were discussing. And did I want to bring it up? Not really, but was I going to walk out the room without speaking about it? Hell no, of course no. So it was like, May, just come on, do it, take one for the team, let's do it. No one else is, strong enough to have that conversation in this room right now. And that's fine, that's not a dig. It's like people might have been having a difficult day, they might, whatever. Although I will say that the particular example, that wasn't the case. It was just, it wasn't going to happen if I didn't say something. So it's like, right, May, let's go. Let's rock and roll. Like, speak. Speak, speak, speak. And you know what? It can be 3 words, it can be 4 words, it can be 5 words. It doesn't have to be a long sentence. It can be such a short sentence. Sometimes it's 3 words that then leads a conversation to where it needs to go. And that brings a much better outcome for every single person in the room. And that is something that as women, we've really got to step up as leaders. You're listening to this, you are a leader. What are you leading in? What are your values? What are you standing for? One of the things I stand for is being really open and direct and being really clear and honest. And so that in itself, in order for me to live and breathe that value, I've got to say something when I know that things, people are wanting to say something. It's really important. It's not an optional thing. It's like, if this needs to be said, it needs to be said. So important. Number 8, final learning from February, or from the last 3 weeks as I'm recording this. I can't believe it's only been 3 weeks. I feel like I've been on a real roller coaster this month. Again, this is the one we know, but I think it's so important to remind ourselves of, and this is really, it just really reminded me this month. So we have to advocate for ourselves to earn money. You will not get paid unless you ask. This is really important, okay? Because I think people become very relaxed with this after, the movements that we have made in terms of like as women progressing and things, and there's just been a lot of progress. But what I think the issue with that is then people just then think, oh, well, it's fine, we're sorted. And that's not the case. Because when we look at money and we look at salary and we look at earnings and we look at shares and we look at everything that is a touch point towards women and how they, have money in their bank accounts, that is not as equal situation as it is for our counterparts. And that comes down to numerous things, but one of those things is about speaking up, which is why we've done the episode last week. But also it's about you understanding and advocating for your money and advocating for yourself of like, this is what I am charging, or this is, how much I want X amount of thing for. This is the situation. So many people they just don't do this bit, right? And that is damaging. It's not fair. We shouldn't have to do it, agreed. And I'd argue that women have to do it a lot more than men, but we do have to do it. So not doing it is not helping us. And we have to just advocate. You've got to say for yourself, hey, this is the situation. This is what's happening. People are not, whether this is, a client relationship, whether it's somebody's asked you for something, whether, you are going to do some kind of press thing, like whatever this is for you, people are not just going to come and give you a boatload of money most of the time. Like, they're not just going to be like, oh, here you go, like, thanks, great. Like, that's not going to happen. You will likely not get paid unless you ask. And so you have to really be clear about what are you asking for, what do you want, what do you need, what are your boundaries, what is the situation, and where are you going? Getting that really clear is so bloody key, because if not, then you're probably going to just go along like normal. And that's an issue, because for many people around the world, we've got to earn money. We've got bills to pay. We've got dreams to make happen. There's a lot of things going on. We've got responsibilities. So I want to leave you on that today of how can you advocate more for yourself? How can you stand up more and be like, yeah, do you know what? I'm not going to get paid unless I ask. I'm not going to get paid more. Put the word more in there if you need to. I'm not going to get paid more unless I ask. So ask and do it. Those are my 8 learnings from February. I hope you've had a great February yourself. You're now listening to this into March. How insane that we are in the last month of Q1 of 2023. That is quite an interesting thought. Have a think about these 8 lessons. Think about, which of those are you taking with you, and which do you need to maybe implement something from, or which was thought-provoking for you? And then also have a reflection on what were your learnings for February. What did you learn? What have you kind of integrated? What have you thought about? What didn't you not think about was a learning, but actually listen to this, you've then realised, that was a learning. Write all of that down. Take some time to reflect on it. It's really, really powerful. I will look forward to you tuning in next week. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a review. I really appreciate it if you do, on whatever platform you are on. Love it if you'd leave a review. Come and follow me over on Instagram. I'm at may.james_. I'm very friendly. Reach out, have a chat. And share this episode, share it with your community, share it with other women. Like, the work I do with this podcast, it's a free resource that we put out every single week. It's a long form piece of content. I really feel strongly that this is helping people. I know it's helping people. I think the podcast is now it's over 23 or 4 countries. I don't know, don't quote me, could be wrong, but I know this is having real global impact, but it will kind of grow even more if more of you kind of share and shout about it, and I appreciate those of you who already do. So take care, and I will speak to you next week. Bye.